With fantasy drafts approaching, here's the best pick in each round of the fantasy draft. So I'm going to go through the first 12 rounds of your fantasy draft and give my opinion who I think is the best pick in those rounds. So I'm going off 4x4 Fantasy, which covers a lot of platforms that most fantasy players play on: NFL.com, Yahoo Sports, CBS, Underdog, ESPN. First round, Christian McCaffrey, I like as the best pick in the round. I know Christian McCaffrey, he's had injury concerns, but the last few years he was the number one pick or number two pick in fantasy drafts was McCaffrey. And then last season, missing pretty much the whole year, he's dropped down. But the consensus is, with all those sites into one, 7th overall is McCaffrey. And I've said this in other videos this whole preseason before your drafts, that McCaffrey has the most upside, in my opinion, to become possibly the best running back once again in fantasy football. So McCaffrey, he's going 7th. Overall, in consensus, is McCaffrey, and that's where I would take him in this spot right now. The only problems, obviously, is the injury concerns, but the upside is there. San Francisco, that lost some weapons on offense. Ayuk, he got hurt last season. He's going to be at the beginning of the season. Deebo Samuel traded away to the Commanders. And now in the receiving room, not much going. Jennings, who's holding out, banged up as well. And also, they got Ricky Pearsall entering the second season. So as long as McCaffrey's healthy, like I said, the upside's great. And he's number 7 overall on this 4x4 consensus. And the RB4 around Devon Achane, I like easily going into this. He's arguably could be a first-round pick as Devon Achane, but 13th overall, he is the RB7. And I think Devon Achane, once again, could go out there and have a monster year. Last season, he was a PPR machine, one of the better receiving backs in the league. And if Tua didn't go down with injury, Devon Achane, obviously, I think would have put up bigger numbers and easily would have been a first-round pick. So right now in the second round, great value. Obviously, early second, you got him. The RB7, he's ranked in this where I have him RB5, RB6 range. It's between him and Ginty, very close for me who to take on draft day in the next couple of weeks. But like I said, Achane, he has that first round appeal. His rookie year, he had 8 yards per carry. Last season, he was a workhorse, showed he can handle it even as a smaller back. And I think Devon Achane, the best pick you could get in the second round. Obviously, if you don't have a late pick in the first, you're not going to be able to get Devon Achane early in the second. But on even Yahoo, I've seen him go 16. ESPN, he's 14, 15. So Devon Achane, he's a great value. Like I said, he's got upside as well to be a top 3 running back this season, possibly. Third round, the best pick in my opinion is Tyreek Hill, his teammate of the Miami Dolphins. So Tyreek Hill and this whole offense obviously fell off big time. But Tyreek Hill right now, he's going 30th consensus-wise. And on Yahoo, the platform I'm on, the most 37th overall, he's ranked going into the season. So he's the 13th ranked receiver going in, is Tyreek Hill consensus-wise with this 4x4. But like I said, he's had a great career, no doubt about it. And people have obviously counted Hill out and his back's against the wall. We've seen him put up numbers. So last season, he failed to reach 1,000 yards, had some off-the-field problems as well. Tyreek Hill, he was caught up in some things. But I think this season, as long as Tua is healthy, even though I know it's a big if, he could go out there and Tyreek Hill could be solid in at least the quarterback position. They drafted Brock Bowers late in the NFL draft. I know they got Zach Wilson, even though he's been a horrible quarterback throughout his career, even though Garrett Wilson still had a 1,000-yard receiving year with Zach Wilson, a quarterback, a few seasons ago. But like I said, Tyreek Hill, the upside's still there. And in my opinion, he still has upside to be a top 12 player overall with Tyreek Hill. I don't think he really lost a step or anything. I think teams game planned a little bit. And obviously the injuries to Tua was a big factor in this offense for the Miami Dolphins. And that's why I think Tyreek Hill last season had a bad year. But like I said, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he bounces back with a big season. And if you've been watching the channel and a lot of my mock drafts, third round, automatic pick for me in the third round to get Hill. Fourth round, Damari and Hampton, I like a lot. Hampton, to me, he could be a top 8, top 10 running back when it's all said and done this season. I know Najee Harris is there, but he's banged up in training camp. He really hasn't practiced with the eye injury all training camp. And on here, Hampton, he's the RB15 and 39th overall. So if you could get Amari Hampton in the 4th round, I think that's great value. One of the better running back prospects to come out in the last few seasons. They used high draft capital in the first round, obviously, was this Los Angeles Charger team to get Hampton. And I know they're going to rotate backs in and out, but even Hampton, I think he only needs 15 20 touches per game to be effective. We've seen it with Jahmyr Gibbs over the first 2 years of his NFL career. He don't need a monster workload, 25, 30 touches per game. And Hampton, he has the explosiveness. He's got good hands out of the backfield. And this offense, they needed a legit back last year. I think what held the offense back a little bit, they had Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Even though Dobbins did a good job, I think Hampton obviously has a higher upside. And to get him in the 4th round is a steal. They lost one of the better offensive linemen in the league, and their row line taking a hit, but I still don't think it's going to affect Hampton much. He was a big-time college running back, and they took him in the 1st round. So Hampton to go 4th round with top 12 RB upside is a great pick. 5th round, another rookie, Tidora McMillan of the Carolina Panthers, 60th overall consensus-wise, receiver 29. And in my rankings, I have him at 21 overall at the receiving position. And in most likely top 50 for me is McMillan. So McMillan, number 1 option easily coming out of the NFL draft for this Panther team. They had Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker last season, and easily going to pass those guys. And like I said, a top receiving prospect coming out. I know the landing spot isn't ideal, but this Panther team, most likely, they're going to be trailing a lot of games. And McMillan, he just runs different than these other players. You could tell on the field. He could run all the routes. He's got the 6'4" height where he could just catch balls over defenders. And he reminds me of a Mike Evans a little bit, with a little more speed as McMillan, and maybe even burst on his cuts as McMillan. So I think McMillan, end of this 5th round range, is great value for him because, like I said, they're going to be trailing most likely a lot is the Carolina Panthers. He's got great agility, speed, and the height advantage on all these corners. And going into the season, I like McMillan a lot, and I think people are down on him just because he's on the Panthers. And obviously he's an unknown because he's a rookie, but still at the back end of the 5th, 6th round range is great value. 6th round, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So he's the tight end 6 going in, 66 overall is Travis Kelce. And Kelce, I know last season a lot of duds he put in, but believe it or not, he still had 97 catches. I think as the year goes on, he'll take a backseat. We know Rashee Rice, he's not going to be suspended at least the first 4 weeks of the season, but after that, on the hearing, September 30th, we'll see. But Kelce still had 97 catches last year. This offense, they're trying to improve, and even last season, I don't think the offense wasn't great for majority of the season, and they still got to the Super Bowl, even though obviously the Philadelphia Eagles blew him out. So like I said, Travis Kelce, I know he's 35, latter part of his NFL career, but him and Mahomes, they got the ESP. They've been on the same page for many seasons. They've won 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs, and I think Travis Kelce this season, in one of his last year, goes out there and has a good year. And like I said, last year, 97 catches, especially in PPR leagues. That's nothing to ignore. 7th round, Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. A lot of people sleeping on Pollard. He's 73rd overall, RB28 going into fantasy drafts. And Tony Pollard last season, he had 1,300 yards from scrimmage. He had a big workload for the Tennessee Titans where with receptions and rushes, he had over 240 touches. I know he's a smaller back, but we saw it with Dallas. We saw it last season in his first year with the Tennessee Titans. He could handle the workload as Tony Pollard. And I think, once again, he could go out there this season and he has some upside to be a top 12, 15 back. Obviously, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but the work's going to be there. Tajay Spears, he got hurt in their first preseason game for this Tennessee Titan team, and he's definitely a running back I would target. And if you could get him in the 7th round as your even 3rd back bench piece is Tony Pollard. That's great value going into your fantasy drafts. 8th round, Justin Fields of the New York Jets. I know a lot of people obviously not high on the New York Jets, but in terms of putting up numbers and making plays, Fields could do that. We saw it a few years ago with the Bears where he rushed for 1,000 yards. And this Jet team, they don't have a lot of weapons besides Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. So I think they're going to let him loose is this New York Jet team. And to get a quarterback with major upside like Justin Fields, QB 11 and 93rd overall ADP-wise is Justin Fields. I think it's great value in the 8th round to get him. Like I said, he's got that crazy rushing upside. He was up there with Lamar a couple seasons ago. And then last season, the Steelers, they just didn't let him run wild. I think this Jet team, they're going to tell him, go out there, make plays, and do what you do and play your game is for Justin Fields, especially after giving him 2 years, $40 million. The Jets have confidence in Fields, and I think they're going to let him go out there and play his type of football. And like I said, with limited playmakers besides Hall and Wilson and nothing else really at the tight end or receiving position for this Jet team, I think he's going to get let loose as Justin Fields. and very solid, like I said. 93rd going in ADP wise. 9th round, Matthew Golden of the Green Bay Packers. So 97 ADP wise. Receiver 45 is Golden. And Golden easily has a chance, I think, for this Green Bay Packer team to step up and be the number one option in the receiving room. We know they got Romeo Doubs. Jaden Reed, he's been up and down the last couple seasons. Christian Watson, big playability, no doubt about it, but always injured. It seems like with Watson and Dontayvion Wicks. So they picked him in the first round with this Green Bay Packer team. And this offense needed another playmaker and possibly a true number one. I know he's an undersized wide receiver, but his speed is great. And his ability to go out there and make plays for Matthew Golden is great. So like I said, Green Bay's a good landing spot. Jordan Love didn't have a great season last year, but he's still a quarterback I think could go out there, put up numbers. He spreads the football out. And like I said, this Packer team, they used high draft capital in the first round to get Matthew Golden on this roster. So Golden in the 9th round, a rookie. Some of these guys break out. We see year after year in fantasy football, especially in some of those later round picks. Like Puka Nacua a couple years ago was undrafted, unheard of for most people, and already he's a first round pick in fantasy drafts. So Matthew Golden, I'm not saying his upside's going to be that crazy, but I'm just saying he's got a good possibility of being the number one wide receiver over there for the Green Bay Packers and having a solid rookie season. And I like targeting rookies a lot in these fantasy drafts. They're under the radar. Not a lot of people know about them. And if you follow, obviously, college and stats and stuff, you'll know that these guys are great value. Now the 10th round, another rookie, Colston Loveland of the Chicago Bears. Loveland, he's at good value. For me, he has potential to be in a top 9, top 10 tight end going into the season. So right now, 113 overall is his ADP. Tight end number 12 off the board is Colston Loveland, and he was the first tight end drafted in the NFL draft. A lot of people thought Tyler Warren was going to go first, but Colston Loveland went 10 to the Chicago Bears, and 14 Tyler Warren went to the Indianapolis Colts. So this Bear offense, they definitely could take off with Ben Johnson as the head coach, where obviously he was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, and that's been one of the best offenses in all pro football the last 2-3 seasons. So Loveland, he's a matchup nightmare for obviously safeties who cover him, linebackers, whoever you're going to put on him. And he's jumped up the depth chart quickly out of training camp and in the first preseason game over Cole Kmet. So right now going in the 10th round is great range for a tight end who has potential to possibly do what Sam Laporta did in a Ben Johnson offense. I'm not saying put up those crazy numbers like he did rookie year, but possibly something similar Loveland could do for the Chicago Bear team. And it's a young nucleus over there. And Loveland, like I said, in college, he had some big seasons, and he was a top 10 pick for a reason in the NFL draft. 11th round, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. Stroud last season, he took a major step back. Interceptions went way up. Inaccuracy went up. And he was a guy I thought last season he could have had a monster year over 4,000 yards, but nothing went his way. And a lot of injuries they dealt with as well. Stephon Diggs tore his ACL pretty early in the year. Tank, though, he was up and down with injuries all season until he broke his leg later in the season at the Kansas City Chiefs. And Nico Collins missed 4 games as well, where he was off and running the first 3-4 weeks of the year before the injury. So C.J. Stroud, the QB 18, coming in 123rd overall. And in the 11th round, if I could wait on quarterback and get a C.J. Stroud, I'd have confidence, to be honest. Like I said, he's got good weapons, Nico Collins over there. Dalton Schultz, I think, is a capable tight end, not for fantasy, but a guy who could line up and make plays on some key third downs when you need him to. In terms of fantasy football, I don't think the numbers will be there. And then you got Joe Mixon out of the backfield, even though we don't know when he's going to come back. So I think C.J. Stroud, he got humbled a little bit last season after rookie year. A lot of people already had him nabbed as one of the better quarterbacks in all pro football. But I think this season, humbled up a little bit. They got a nice weapon in Jaden Higgins, who I'm going to talk about next, as a great value in the 12th round. And I think this offense, they're going to go back to basics a little bit. Now he's got a good 3-receiver set with Collins, Christian Kirk they traded for, drafting Higgins in the 2nd round. And C.J. Stroud under the radar. I think it could be a bounce-back season for him in the 12th round and final round. Best pick available to me is Jaden Higgins of the Houston Texans, 134th overall is Higgins, 54th wide receiver. And I said this in other videos where Higgins, right now, he's lining up as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. He's getting a lot of first-team reps, obviously with the starters. Christian Kirk, he's in the slot where he's been his whole career. working with this Houston Texan team. And I think Higgins, he could go out there and surprise. And like I said, a lot of these rookies have good upside. And it was a nice draft this year with receivers and running backs in the NFL draft. And most of these players, they landed in good spots draft day. I think these teams are filling out needs. And Higgins, he's a big wide receiver that could go out there, make acrobatic plays, and he's a matchup nightmare for DB. So to have him lined up next to Nico Collins and have single coverage, he definitely could be a great option for fantasy owners. And for him, with this upside, like I said, to go 12th, 13th round range is just good. So he's someone that I have as a sleeper this season, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if Higgins has a good rookie season, maybe 800 yards, 60 catches, 7-8 touchdowns. I think that's a possibility, especially if you're going to take a guy with that type of upside in the 11th to 13th round range. That's the best draft picks, rounds 1 through 12 for me, entering the 2025 fantasy football season.